We're eliminating 40 positions effective next month. But don't worry, we're creating an exciting new leadership role to guide our transformation. Warren's words echoed through the stunned conference room as 40 of my colleagues realized they were losing their jobs. The projected spreadsheet behind him showed departments slashed, teams dissolved, lives upended. I watched people I'd worked alongside for years, struggling to maintain composure. Some stared blankly ahead. Others furiously scribbled notes, as if documenting everything might somehow save their positions. I just sat there, pen poised over my notebook, face carefully neutral. 15 years of practice had taught me exactly how to look engaged without revealing a single thought. This restructuring will streamline our organization and position us perfectly for what's coming next in our industry, Warren continued, his voice rising with manufactured enthusiasm. Change is necessary for growth. 2 weeks later, Warren introduced his nephew, Gideon, as our new Chief Innovation Officer, 26-year-old with a fresh business degree and a LinkedIn profile hastily padded with industry buzzwords. His starting salary, $200,000. The position they'd eliminated 40 jobs to create. Before I continue, thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let me know what corner of the world you're in. My name is Lyra. For 15 years, I've been the person who makes things work at this company. Not the one who takes credit, not the one who makes speeches at gatherings. I'm the one people come to when they need something fixed, explained, or improved without fuss. I started as an entry-level analyst and worked my way up to leading our data integration team, not because I demanded promotions, but because I solved problems nobody else could. Warren became CEO 4 years ago. He arrived with aggressive growth targets and zero interest in how we'd previously done things. Within 6 months, he'd replaced half the leadership team with his own selections. The rest of us adapted, learning his preferences, adjusting our communication styles. We survived. I survived by becoming exactly what he wanted to see: reliable, uncomplaining, and, most importantly, unthreatening. When Gideon arrived, I watched 40 empty desks from my workspace. 40 colleagues with families, mortgages, medical bills, gone. Meanwhile, Gideon spent his first week observing while playing games on his phone beneath the conference table. "What do you think?" Trina whispered. During lunch that Friday, her own position safe but diminished. "Everyone's talking about how Gideon can barely explain what we do." I chewed my sandwich slowly. "Change is tough," I replied, voice even. "I'm focused on making the transition work." Trina stared at me. "Lyra, these were your friends. Your team is gone. Don't you care?" "Getting emotional won't bring them back," I said. I'm being practical. But inside, something had shifted. Something cold and precise had awakened after years of dormancy. The next Monday, I arrived early and stayed late. I volunteered for transition committees. I offered to help organize departing employees' knowledge transfers. I took extra assignments without complaint. Warren nodded approvingly when passing my desk. Gideon barely noticed me at all. While others complained openly, I remained neutral. While others sent angry farewell emails, I sent thoughtful notes about what I'd learned from departing colleagues. I became the model employee during chaos. "Warren thinks you're handling this well," his assistant Penny mentioned, while waiting for coffee one morning. "He said you're exactly the kind of steady presence needed during transformation." I smiled. That's kind of him to say. What nobody realized, I was watching, listening, documenting everything. I noticed how Gideon couldn't remember client names during calls, how he assigned impossible deadlines without understanding the work involved, how he took credit for ideas raised in meetings, how he disappeared for hours without explanation. During week 3, 10 more people were let go ahead of schedule. The remaining teams struggled to maintain basic operations, while Gideon approved executive bonuses for managing through transition. By week 4, customer complaints doubled. Support tickets went unanswered. Critical updates were delayed. Gideon blamed it all on restructuring challenges and attitude problems among remaining staff. Week 5 brought the announcement of extended hours for all departments until we weather the transition. No additional compensation. No timeline for return to normal. Through it all, I maintained my calm exterior. I attended every meeting. I documented every decision. I learned which board members were growing concerned about service disruptions, which investors were questioning the rapid staffing changes, which clients were considering other options. Most importantly, I noticed Gideon kept a leather journal where he wrote everything: his uncle's instructions, their private conversations, their actual plans for the company. He left it on his desk most evenings, never imagining anyone would look. But the cleaning staff knew me. They'd known me for 15 years, known how I brought coffees on cold mornings, remembered their children's names, helped with paperwork when needed. Maria, who cleaned the executive floor, mentioned Gideon's habit of leaving sensitive information visible. He writes everything down, Lyra. Everything. And just leaves it there while he goes to dinner. Security says it's fine since the building is locked, but still. I nodded sympathetically. That's concerning. Executive floors contain sensitive information. Maybe I should mention proper security protocols during our next all-hands. Maria looked relieved. Would you? I worry about getting blamed if anything happens. Of course. I'll handle it discreetly. What Warren never realized. I hadn't survived 15 years by being invisible. I'd survived by being essential. I knew every system, process, and relationship. I'd trained most of the people he'd just fired. I'd built connections with every client, vendor, and investor. People shared things with me because I listened. I remembered I helped without seeking credit. Now I would use that network. I began with small, careful steps. Answering a concerned email from our largest client, with factual information about delayed deliverables. Mentioning to a board member that quarter-end projections might need adjustment due to staffing changes. Updating a longtime investor about changes to our product roadmap. No accusations, no complaints. Just information the right people needed to know, delivered by someone they'd always trusted to be straightforward. Are you okay? Trina asked one evening as we worked late. You seem different, like you're planning something. I paused, considering my words carefully. I'm adapting. The company is changing, so I'm changing too. She leaned closer. People are worried you've given up, that you're just accepting all this. I met her eyes. Have I ever struck you as someone who gives up, Trina? Her eyes widened slightly. No, never. Then trust me now. Sometimes the quietest response is the most effective. That night, I stayed later than anyone. I walked through empty workspaces where teams had once collaborated. I stood in vacant conference rooms where we'd solved impossible problems together. I touched chairs where mentors had once sat, teaching me everything they knew. The company wasn't just balance sheets and product lines. It was people, knowledge, relationships, everything Warren and Gideon were carelessly destroying. By week 6, the cracks were showing. 3 major clients had escalated concerns to the board. 2 executives had resigned, rather than continue implementing Gideon's contradictory directives. The quarterly forecast showed alarming trends. Warren called an emergency leadership meeting. I was invited to present transition status, the only mid-level manager included. We're experiencing temporary setbacks, Warren announced, tight-lipped. Gideon will outline our recovery strategy. Gideon stood, confident despite the disaster unfolding. The restructuring has exposed weaknesses in our operational model. We need additional changes to address these underlying issues. I sat quietly, taking notes as he proposed eliminating 10 more positions while creating 2 deputy roles to support his work. No one challenged him directly, though tension filled the room. When he finished, Warren nodded. Questions? Concerns? Silence. Then, Warren pointed to me. Lyra, you've been handling transition documentation. Your assessment? Everyone turned toward me. This was the moment of truth. The moment 15 years of patience had prepared me for. I believe our challenges go beyond staffing, I said calmly. May I share some observations about our current situation? Warren nodded, expecting the safe, supportive response I'd always provided. I pulled out my folder of carefully organized notes. I've prepared a detailed analysis of our service metrics before and after restructuring. I'm concerned the board might find these trends alarming if they see them without proper context. For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across Warren's face. What happened next would change everything. I opened my folder. Inside were meticulously organized charts, customer emails, and financial projections. Not accusations, just facts in clear, undeniable patterns. The room was completely still as I began. Since the restructuring announcement 6 weeks ago, We've experienced a 47% increase in service delays, a 63% increase in customer complaints, and 8 of our top 20 clients have requested emergency meetings with account managers who no longer work here. Warren's smile stiffened. That's to be expected during transition. I've compared these numbers to our 3 previous organizational changes. I continued, sliding a graph across to him. This pattern is unprecedented. Previous restructuring never impacted client satisfaction beyond 12%. Gideon interrupted. These statistics don't account for the innovation roadmap we're developing. I've also analyzed costs, I said, my voice remaining calm while my heart hammered. The elimination of 40 positions saved approximately $3.2 million in annual salaries. However, the creation of the new executive position, plus proposed deputy roles, will cost $450,000 annually. Meanwhile, we've lost 2 major accounts worth $1.8 million in annual revenue since the changes began. Board member Elise leaned forward. I wasn't aware we'd lost those accounts. The losses haven't been formally reported yet, I replied. But the termination notices arrived yesterday. I've included copies. Warren's face darkened. This meeting is about forward strategy, not dwelling on temporary setbacks. I nodded. I understand. That's why I've also prepared a comparison of qualifications between our departed team leaders and our new Chief Innovation Officer. This analysis might help identify skills gaps, contributing to our current challenges. Gideon's face flushed as I distributed the document. It wasn't mean-spirited or personal, just a straightforward comparison of experience, education, and achievements. The contrast was unavoidable. People we'd let go had built successful products, managed complex transitions, and developed deep client relationships. Gideon had none of that. This is inappropriate, Warren snapped, grabbing the papers. Lyra, you've overstepped. I maintained my composed expression. I apologize if I've misunderstood my role. I was asked to document transition impacts. These are the impacts. Board member Terrence studied my reports. These concerns align with what I've been hearing from investors. Warren, why weren't we informed sooner? Because they're temporary issues being deliberately exaggerated, Warren insisted. Every transformation includes growing pains. Perhaps, I offered. But I'm concerned these particular growing pains might trigger the performance clause in our financing agreement with Fremont Group. They can recall their investment if service metrics fall below threshold for 2 consecutive quarters. The room temperature seemed to drop. Fremont Group was our primary investor. Their financing agreement wasn't public knowledge, except to those who'd helped draft the original terms. People like me, who'd been there from the beginning. Warren dismissed the meeting abruptly. We'll reconvene tomorrow after I've reviewed these materials. Lyra, please stay behind. As others filed out, I caught glimpses of their expressions: shock, worry, and something else, a dawning realization about who I actually was. When the room emptied, Warren closed the door. What exactly do you think you're doing? My job, I replied simply, documenting organizational changes and their impacts. You made my nephew look incompetent. I presented factual information. If that information reflects poorly on anyone's competence, that's not within my control. Warren leaned closer. Do you understand who I am? What I can do to your career? I met his gaze. Do you understand who I am, Warren? What I've built here over 15 years while executives have come and gone? He laughed, genuinely surprised by my audacity. You're a mid-level manager who's suddenly forgotten her place. I'm the person who trained most of the people you fired. I'm the one who built the systems your nephew can't understand. I'm the one clients call when they can't reach their assigned contacts. I'm not just an employee, Warren. I'm institutional memory. His expression hardened. You're easily replaced. Then replace me, I said calmly. But first, you might want to check who's named as the primary technical contact on our top 15 client contracts, or who holds administrator access to our proprietary systems, or who designed the custom reporting tool the board relies on for oversight. Uncertainty flickered across his face. You've been here 4 years. I continued softly. I've been here 15. You saw what you wanted to see. Someone quiet, someone compliant. You never bothered to understand what I actually do here. Warren regained his composure. If you're threatening me, I'm providing context. There's a difference. I gathered my papers. The board now has accurate information about our current situation. What happens next is up to you. You're fired, he snapped. Clean out your desk immediately. I nodded. As you wish. I'll need to transfer my administrative access and client relationships. That typically takes 2 weeks given the complexity of my role. Would you prefer I document those processes first? Or should I simply leave everything as is? Warren hesitated, finally recognizing the trap. Fire me immediately, and critical systems would become inaccessible. Client relationships would be damaged further. But keeping me around meant I could continue sharing uncomfortable truths. 2 days, he finally said. You have 2 days for knowledge transfer, supervised by security. That won't be sufficient time, but I'll do my best. I walked to the door, then paused. One more thing, Warren. The board has my personal contact information, should they need clarification on anything in my reports. I'd never seen such fury on a human face. The next morning, rumors spread quickly. People watched as security escorted me between meetings. Colleagues found excuses to pass by my desk, whispering support or slipping me notes. What did you do? Trina asked during a bathroom break, the only place without surveillance. I told the truth, I replied, with documentation. Is it true, Warren said, he'd destroy your career? He can try. I washed my hands calmly. But I've spent 15 years building relationships that matter. Gideon avoided me entirely, canceling the knowledge transfer sessions Warren had demanded. Instead, I was instructed to create written documentation of all systems and processes. By the afternoon, 3 board members had contacted me separately for private conversations. Their questions were similar. How bad was it really? What was really happening with clients? How much did Warren know? Each time, I provided facts without emotion or speculation. Warren remained sequestered in his office, emerging only for brief, tense conversations with his leadership team. Gideon wasn't included in these meetings. As my second day drew to a close, Warren summoned me again. His demeanor had changed. Less aggressive, more calculating. I may have reacted hastily, he began. Your institutional knowledge is valuable during this transition. I'm prepared to offer you a 6-month contract at a 30% premium to oversee the changes properly. I considered him. What about the people who've been let go? That decision stands. But your point about Gideon is taken. He'll undergo additional training before assuming full responsibilities. So 40 jobs remain eliminated, but your nephew keeps his position. Warren's smile tightened. Business decisions aren't personal, Lyra. The restructuring was necessary, regardless of who filled the new role. Then it shouldn't be a problem to justify those decisions to an objective third party. His eyes narrowed. What does that mean? The board is commissioning an independent audit of the restructuring decision and its implementation. Elise called me an hour ago to inform me. Warren's expression froze. That's unnecessary. The board has no reason. They have quarterly performance data and client termination notices. That's reason enough. I stood. I should finish my documentation. Security is waiting to escort me out at 5. Sit down, Warren insisted. We can work through this. What do you want? I studied him. What makes you think this is a negotiation? Everything's a negotiation. He leaned forward. Name your price to tell the board this was a misunderstanding. A temporary adjustment period blown out of proportion. My price? I repeated. You eliminated 40 positions, 40 lives upended, to create a role for your nephew. You've lost clients, damaged our reputation, and undermined the company's culture. There is no price that fixes that, Warren. Don't pretend this is about principle, he scoffed. Everyone has a price. Perhaps you're right. I finally sat. My price is reinstatement of every qualified employee who wants to return, compensation for those who found other jobs, and a public acknowledgement that the restructuring was misguided. He laughed. Impossible. Then we have nothing more to discuss. I stood again. You're making a mistake, Warren called as I reached the door. This company will fail without decisive leadership. I turned back. This company survived before you arrived. It will survive after you're gone. Is that a threat? It's an observation based on 15 years of institutional memory. Good evening, Warren. Security escorted me to my desk, where I gathered personal belongings under watchful eyes. Colleagues passed by, expressions ranging from confusion to admiration. Trina handed me a card signed by everyone in our department. What happens now? She whispered. Now we wait, I replied. truth doesn't need much help once it starts moving. As I walked out for what might be the last time, I felt strangely peaceful. 15 years of building relationships, understanding systems, and solving problems had prepared me for this moment. I wasn't just leaving. I was carrying something with me that Warren couldn't take away. Knowledge, trust, the truth about what had really happened, and why. That night, my phone rang constantly. Board members with more questions, former colleagues offering support, clients asking if rumors about my departure were true. I answered each call calmly, providing only facts without speculation or emotion. By midnight, I'd spoken with 11 people, including 2 major investors and the company's former CEO, who'd retired 3 years earlier. As I finally prepared for bed, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Board emergency meeting tomorrow, 8 a.m. Warren doesn't know yet. Be ready. I closed my eyes, thinking of 40 empty desks, of Gideon's unearned authority, of Warren's absolute certainty that he could do whatever he wanted without consequences. Tomorrow would change everything. I just didn't know exactly how, yet. At 7:30 the next morning, my phone rang again. It was Elise from the board. "We need you to bring everything," she said without preamble. "Every report, every email, every document showing what's really been happening." "I have it all," I assured her, "but I'm no longer an employee. You will be again if this goes the way I think it will. Warren doesn't know what's coming. Neither did I, exactly. But I was about to find out. I arrived at the company headquarters by 7:45, carrying a single expandable file folder. Security looked surprised to see me, but allowed me entry when Elise texted to confirm my invitation. The boardroom felt different that morning, tense, expectant. 8 board members sat around the table, with 2 more joining remotely on the large screen. Elise gestured for me to take a seat near her. "Warren and his team will arrive at 8, she explained quietly. "We wanted to speak with you first." Terrence, the board chair, leaned forward. "Lyra, what you shared yesterday raised serious concerns. We need to understand exactly what's been happening." I opened my folder. I've organized everything chronologically. The first section contains the original restructuring proposal as presented to employees versus the actual implementation details. The second contains performance metrics before and after changes. The third contains client communications and financial impacts. They passed the documents among themselves, expressions growing darker with each page. "How did we miss this?" Jacqueline, another board member, murmured. "Because the official reports don't match reality," I explained. "Notice how the customer satisfaction data Warren provided you last month shows minimal impact? Compare that with the raw support ticket numbers and client escalation emails." Elise flipped through client communications. "These are damning. Why didn't our account managers alert us?" "Because most of them were let go in the restructuring," I replied. "Their replacements are overwhelmed and afraid to speak up." Terrence studied me. "And you've kept all this documentation while doing your regular job?" "Documenting systems and processes is my regular job," I said simply. I just applied those same skills to what was happening around me. "And the Chief Innovation Officer role? Do you have evidence this position was created specifically for Warren's nephew?" I handed him a slim folder. "These are Gideon's qualifications compared to the job description. And this," I placed a single page before him, "is a text message Gideon sent to a friend 2 weeks before the restructuring announcement, stating he was moving here for an executive position his uncle had created for him." "How did you obtain this?" Terrence asked sharply. "Gideon showed it to our marketing team during his first day lunch, bragging about his connection. 3 people witnessed it. Their signed statements are attached." The board members exchanged glances. "One last question before they arrive," Elise said. "How much of this have you shared with people outside this room?" "Nothing beyond what I presented yesterday," I answered truthfully. "I believe in proper channels. The board should determine next steps, not me." Terrence nodded, satisfied. "Thank you, Lyra. Please stay for the meeting, but understand we may ask you to step out for certain discussions." At precisely 8 o'clock, Warren arrived with Gideon and 2 other executives. His confident stride faltered when he saw me. "What is this?" he demanded. "Why is she here?" "Please sit down, Warren," Terrence replied calmly. "We're conducting a comprehensive review of the restructuring implementation." Warren recovered quickly. "I welcome any review. Our transformation strategy is sound, despite temporary disruptions. Is nepotism part of that strategy? Jacqueline asked bluntly, holding up Gideon's text message. The color drained from Warren's face. For the next 2 hours, the board methodically dismantled everything Warren had built. They questioned the business rationale behind each eliminated position. They presented client complaints he'd hidden from them. They revealed financial projections, showing the restructuring would cost more than it saved. Warren's defenses grew increasingly desperate. He blamed market conditions, implementation teams, former employees sabotaging transitions. And what about creating a $200,000 position for your nephew? Terrence pressed. Gideon was the most qualified candidate, Warren insisted. His relationship to me is irrelevant. You didn't even post the position externally, Elise noted. How could you determine he was most qualified? I know talent when I see it, Warren snapped. Gideon remained uncharacteristically silent, staring at the table. Terrence finally called a break. Warren, the board will deliberate privately. Please wait in your office. As Warren stood, his facade of control finally cracked. This is about her, isn't it? He pointed at me. One disgruntled employee with a vendetta. This is about evidence, Terrence replied. Substantial evidence of mismanagement and potential ethical violations. After they left, the board asked me detailed questions about operations, client relationships, and what would be needed to stabilize the company. I answered everything factually, without recommendations or blame. Thank you, Lyra, Terrence said finally. Please wait outside while we discuss. I sat in the reception area for almost 2 hours, watching people come and go. Executives were called in briefly, then dismissed. Finally, Elise emerged. The board would like to see you again. When I returned, the atmosphere had changed. Terrence looked resolute, other members relieved. We've reached several decisions, he announced. Warren has been removed as CEO, effective immediately. Gideon's position has been eliminated. The board has appointed Jacqueline as interim CEO while we conduct a proper search. I nodded, processing this information. Additionally, Jacqueline continued, we're reversing the restructuring. We'll be contacting all terminated employees with offers to return. For those who found other positions, we'll provide appropriate settlements. That's good to hear, I said quietly. There's one more thing, Terrence added. We need someone to oversee the transition back. Someone who understands our systems, our people, and our values. I'd be happy to assist in any way I can, I offered. We're thinking of something more permanent, Elise said. The board is creating a new position, Chief Operations Officer, someone who ensures organizational decisions align with our mission and protect our people. We'd like to offer you this role. I sat very still, surprised despite everything. Why me? I asked finally. Because you saw what was happening and did something about it without destroying the company in the process, Terrence explained. You gathered evidence, followed proper channels, and put the organization above personal interest. That's exactly what we need in leadership. I'll need time to consider, I said carefully. Jacqueline nodded. Of course, but we do need someone to handle immediate stabilization. Would you be willing to return on an interim basis, regardless of your decision about the permanent role? Yes, I agreed. I can do that. By afternoon, the news had spread throughout the company. Warren and Gideon had been escorted from the building. An all-hands meeting was scheduled for the following morning. As I walked through the office, colleagues stopped to watch. Some whispered, others smiled. Trina caught up with me near my old desk. Is it true? She asked breathlessly. Warren's gone? People are getting their jobs back? Yes, to both. And you're in charge now. Temporarily. Just helping with the transition. She studied me. You planned this all along, didn't you? From the moment they announced the restructuring? No, I answered truthfully. I just paid attention, documented what happened, made sure the truth couldn't be buried or rewritten. That's the most devastating revenge I've ever seen, Trina said with something like awe. It wasn't revenge, I corrected her. It was justice. Over the next 6 weeks, we rebuilt what Warren had broken. 23 former employees returned, bringing back critical knowledge and relationships. Clients who had considered leaving recommitted after hearing about the changes. The board approved compensation packages for those who'd suffered financial hardship during the upheaval. Warren didn't go quietly. He threatened lawsuits, contacted investors directly, even tried to rally supporters within the company. but the evidence was irrefutable. The board stood firm. Eventually, he accepted a modest severance in exchange for a non-disparagement agreement. Gideon disappeared completely. No public statements, no social media presence, no contact with former colleagues. I heard he moved across the country to work for a family friend. 3 months later, I accepted the permanent COO position with 2 conditions. First, a policy prohibiting family members of executives from holding positions within the company. Second, a formal ethics committee with representation from all levels of the organization. The board unanimously approved both. On my first official day as COO, I walked through the office, no longer the quiet observer, but now the person responsible for protecting what we'd rebuilt. People nodded respectfully as I passed. Not with fear, as they had with Warren, but with something more valuable: trust. I stopped by Trina's desk. "How does it feel having your team back?" "Better than I expected," she admitted. "But different. We all are, I think." "Different how?" "More vigilant," she said thoughtfully. "More willing to speak up. Nobody wants to let things go too far again." That afternoon, I received an email from our largest client, congratulating me on the promotion. "We stayed because of you, Lyra. Because you were honest when others weren't. Because you put the work ahead of politics. That's the kind of leadership we want to partner with." That evening, I stood in my new office, looking out at the city lights. The door, which Warren had always kept closed, remained open. I wanted people to know they could walk in any time. On my desk sat a simple frame containing a quote I'd chosen carefully. "The truth doesn't need to shout to be heard." I hadn't set out for revenge or power. I'd simply refused to participate in the destruction of something worthwhile. I'd protected what mattered by doing what I'd always done: paying attention, documenting carefully, and speaking truth when it counted most. Sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one you should fear most, not because they plan to harm you, but because they see you clearly, without the distortion of their own ego or ambition. The greatest power isn't in creating chaos, it's in restoring order from it. If you've stayed with me through this story, I want to thank you. Sometimes we need reminders that integrity and patience can be more powerful than bold declarations or dramatic confrontations. If this resonated with you, please leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Has anyone ever underestimated you? How did you handle it? I read every comment and would love to hear your experiences. Thank you for listening.